Today I'm going to show you how to make some DIY tassel wall art using embroidery frames, driftwood and scraps of yarn. So I've got some driftwood here I've collected. You could use wooden dowling instead, and some milk paint. You could use chalk paint, fusion mineral paint, any kind of paint that adheres nicely to wood, to be honest, whatever you've got to hand. And I'm painting about 2/3 of the driftwood, a bit more than half, all the way round, and I'm going to set that aside to dry. Just making sure I've got a nice even coat there. And I'm going to do a second piece of driftwood too. I do try and get the edge of the paint to the driftwood a nice straight edge if I can, as much as possible. And then with your embroidery frames, you can leave them plain with the wood effect, or you could paint them. I'm going to just thin down my blue paint here and make it a bit paler, or you can wrap with yarn. So I'm going to paint the inside, the outside and both edges, and just move it around whilst it's drying so it doesn't stick to the newspaper. And just take a bit of care around the twist closure on the embroidery hoop. Next we're going to wrap strips of fabric around an embroidery hoop, and I've just used a glue gun to adhere on the inside of the frame, and you're just going to keep wrapping round and round until you get all the way around your frame, using a little bit of glue now and then to secure in place. These strips of fabric are about a centimetre wide, and I've just ripped them from an old pillowcase. So once that's done, you just set that aside. Next we're going to adhere the driftwood to the embroidery hoop. I'm using fabric tack here. It's not the best of glues, to be honest. I did try a glue gun, that didn't work. I would recommend glue E6000 as a good glue that would work to adhere the two woods together. But let's set that aside to dry, and then we're going to make some tassels to hang from the hoop. So cut yourself some cardboard, different widths, and grab some old yarn, bits left from other projects, and wrap around your cardboard. The cardboard width will be the length of your finished tassel, and your depth of tassel will be the two sides of the cardboard, if you see what I mean, the bits of yarn. So cut it off. Now you've got lengths of yarn horizontal. We're going to create a hanging loop. Now the first way I've done this is just sort of wrapped yarn round, created the loop, and then wrapped yarn around the middle and tied some knots. It's a bit fiddly and your knot will slip. And then you're going to fold your yarn lengths in half around that knot and hanging loop, and keep the hanging loop out of the way. Fold the yarn in half, and then to create this bell top we're going to wrap round and round with this piece of yarn that's left here. So wrap it round a few times, then cut it off, and then we're going to use a tapestry needle to thread it down through the middle of the tassel. Like so. Then we're just going to give the tassel a trim, neaten it up, and then we can hang that from our driftwood. So place the loop one side and then pull the tassel through the loop over the driftwood, if that makes sense, and just pull to hang. Now we're going to make a couple more tassels to add to our driftwood. So I've got my ends of yarn here, all cut in a straight line, and I'm going to get a length of yarn to make my hanging loop. I'm going to fiddle with the yarn, create a knot. As you can see, this method's a little fiddly. I've got another method to show you in a sec. So keep the hanging loop out of the way, fold your yarns down, and then we're going to wrap round to create the top of the tassel. Just making sure the knot is in the middle of the tassel and not showing on the outside, if possible. Again, tapestry needle, thread that end, pass it down through the loop, and we're going to trim to neaten. Depending upon your length of loop will depend upon how low your tassel hangs, and you might choose to have a variety of lengths of tassels, some hanging outside of the embroidery hoop, some staying within the embroidery hoop. The composition's completely up to you as to how many tassels and the length of the tassels. So I'm making one more for this piece of hoop art. I've gone for a different colour again. Now I've got a slightly different technique for trying to get that hanging loop. So I created a loop, but then I'm going to tie a knot in it. So that's the knot being tied. And I'm going to thread all those yarns through the knot and then wrap the long yarn attached to the ball still round the middle here before folding them in half. There we go. And then wrapping around to form the bell top. And I think that's probably an easier technique, to be honest. The reason I've done the like this is so that I get the loop to hang from the driftwood. I mean, a different way would be not to worry about getting a loop at the top and just wrapping your yarn around the driftwood and gluing on the back as an alternative technique. It's just about finding what works for you and what's pleasing to the eye. Again, trim that and hang it on the driftwood. And yet again, I'm going to think about which way around to put my loop. It's a good idea to have them all going the same way, whichever way you choose. Not that anyone else will notice, but you will, and I will. If you see what I mean. So there we go. DIY Tassel Wall Art. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Don't forget to press like and subscribe to the channel for more craft and sewing DIY projects. Thanks for watching.